without a job, without opportunity. And the ability to do so is based simply upon not only your record, but your ability to provide a plan going forward. That's what we've done. We are. I mean, as you know, we were the first ones right after the primary day to make sure that we had as many debates as possible. We have, I believe, 4 or 5 next week. We had 1 today and 2 last week. It's really an opportunity to let the people of Western New York know, and especially the people in the 58th District, where we stand on the issues. And it's important for them to know going into Election Day, because I think there is a very sharp contrast between myself and my opponent, both on economic issues as well as trying to clean up Albany. And we're only going to be able to see that by not only commercial mail, people's mailbox, but one-on-one debates.
I'd like to ask.
We'll get the good-looking guys.
Yeah. Why Jack Quinn III?
Well, this is a no-brainer for us. Jack has been and continues to be a legislator whose agenda is exactly the agenda that the employer community has throughout the state, and is especially needed here upstate. As Jack says, it's all about right-sizing government, reducing the burden on employers so that we can increase jobs in this state. I think it was today that the papers talked about the net loss of jobs in New York State, about 150,000 over the last 15 or so years, more than any other state in the union. That's what's got to turn around. That requires a complete change in Albany. It requires enlightened elected representatives like Jack, and that's why we're all together.
Endorse from NFIB. As Andrew said, no-brainer. Jack has been a consistent advocate for job creators and small business in the state legislature, and one of the best voting records on small business issues over the last 2 years in the entire legislature. That's why we were out here just a few weeks ago and honored him as one of our guardians of small business. This is an economy that's on the brink in New York State. Andrew talked about the job. Probably the most staggering thing about it is that most of those jobs went to New Jersey and Connecticut. So it kind of blows a hole in the old argument that people are leaving because the weather is better somewhere else. There might be a few days out of the year when the weather is better in New Jersey and Connecticut than it is in Buffalo, when it's snowing out here, but by and large it's the same climate. The climate that's different is the economic climate. Because when New Jersey is beating us on the economic climate and the tax environment, we're in big trouble in New York. And let's look at it from this perspective. The last 2 years have been a disaster, not just for employers and job creators, but for taxpayers. Last year's, the 2009 budget, the biggest tax increase in New York State history, the biggest spending increase in New York State history during the worst economy since the Great Depression. Who in their right minds would do that? And here's the kicker. It passed in the state Senate by 1 vote. You look at our voting record, you look at the issues that Unshackle and the Business Council and NFIB stood shoulder to shoulder opposing, almost every one of those things, bad things, passed by 1 vote in the state Senate. So imagine the difference that having 1 more pro-business, pro-job, pro-taxpayer vote in the state Senate would make. Bill Stokowski voted the wrong way on all those things. I have no reason to believe that the other candidate here, who won't mention his name, would vote differently on any of those things. Jack Quinn has a solid record of doing the right thing for the business and taxpayers, and that's why we're all here supporting him. And I would just add, this is significant, because this is the first time that you've got all 3 of the major statewide business and taxpayer organizations standing together endorsing a candidate. This has never happened. And we're going to be doing more of these, but the fact that we're doing it here first shows not only how significant this race is, but how strongly we support Jack Quinn and how much we think he's the right guy.
Ken Adams from the Business Council of New York State. And just to add a couple things to pile on to what Andrew and Mike have put out. We make our endorsement decisions based on a candidate's alignment with 2 things. One, our 5 to Survive fiscal reform agenda, which Jack Quinn signed on to and wholeheartedly supports, and that's property tax cap, spending cap, lower taxes, public employee pension reform, and debt reform. But also, and this is similar to the process used by NFIB, the Business Council, we have a voters guide. Check it out on our website. It tracks 14 issues, 14 bills, including budget bills, critical to economic growth and jobs in the state. And Jack scored an 83, which is really high on that scale. So between the alignment on the voters guide and support for our 5 to Survive fiscal reform agenda, I would join my friends in saying from the Business Council of New York State, endorsing Jack Quinn is also a no-brainer when we do that. and it is this really. It's the first time all four organizations have come together, coalesced on one candidate, and done it, by the way, let's not forget, with Mark, because we all want it to be not more, but a more prosperous, a much more prosperous, much more a better business climate with greater prosperity for the Marks.
Brian Saves with Unshackle Upstate. Again, these guys have hit on all the points that are relevant, but here's the thing that people need to understand. In the last 2 years, the average family of four has been hit with more than $1,300 in new taxes and fees on two budgets that have been disasters for the New York State economy. And when you look at it from a taxpayer perspective, those are things we simply can't afford anymore. We have the highest property taxes in the country. We have some of the highest energy rates in the country. Everything that was passed in that budget gets trickled down to the average person in the state of New York. And once again, our government reached into our pockets and starts taking our nickels and dimes away from us. So what we like to say is you can have your own opinion, but you can't have your own facts. Jack Quinn's record is a series of facts that he has supported the taxpayers, he has supported the business community, and he is someone that we need to get into New York State Senate to get that critical one vote that we're going to need to stop the bad budgets that are going to come and stop the bad legislation that does nothing but make us a more onerous state, not only in our nation but in the global economy, and won't allow people like Mark to succeed. So it's absolutely critical that we all work together to get Jack elected to the Senate, and then Jack works with us next year to change the legislation and change the profiles of New York State.
Mark, you want to say something? I agree with all these folks. I want to do improvements to my business, so I sell more Polish sausage. If I sell more Polish sausage, I hire more people. That's how it works. So,
That's the best line of all. That puts it together pretty simply.
Maybe he should be running for office.
He should. Well,
Take Mark with us wherever we go.
Do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, guys.
Thank you.